If you are looking for measuring a successful managed service operation with Casper, you are in the right spot. So, good afternoon. You are in for a treat. We've got Joel and Sean Matthew here from True Source Labs from Austin, Texas.
Hi there, everyone. So, like you said, my name is Sean Matthew Leary, and this is Joel.
Hello.
And we're from True Source Labs in Austin, Texas. We are about a 600-plus agent company, and we just recently opened up our first satellite office in Limerick, Ireland. And we kind of have two avenues of business. We do global support for IoT companies, and more relevant to y'all, we do Jamf Pro, Apple as a help desk service. And so we're offering that out of Austin and have been going for about 3 years now. So why we're here today is our foundation is in contact centers, and we have a big history with Apple. We understand how important a proper relationship between that end user, be it a customer or a customer that is an employee at a business. And so we understand the value in evaluating those experiences that a managed service does. And so we want to manage those experiences and ensure that every single time we're getting a high CSAT, and we're not just fixing the problem, we're repairing that relationship so that those employees feel excited to talk to us or that IT department to you guys. And so we want to kind of bring that introspection to help desk and kind of bring that insight that we have. Because every agent on a help desk is a brand ambassador for you. And so they want to help kind of foster that culture and those values of your company and bring that forward. And so today, we're going to be talking about traditional help desk metrics. We're going to talk about why those metrics bite. They're not great. I like that. And so we're going to talk about some better metrics to go by. And then we've got some tools and some ideas to talk about. But really, we want to kind of continue the conversation with you guys. We want to hear your thoughts, your ideas. We want to work together to make managed services a better experience for every end user.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, we're going to shake hands.
Oh, yeah, real awkward.
We rehearsed that in rehearsal. So first of all, I am very excited that we've almost filled the whole room on a session about metrics and managed services. We had some doubts when we started off that we could get much of an audience. But this actually makes me quite happy that we've got all this. So first of all, who's actually doing managed services? We probably have a number of people in the audience. Wonderful. All right. The rest of you may be consumers of managed services. Who's got internal help desk? And they're looking at kind of what maybe metrics they look at there and everything else. Wonderful. We hope to have something for all of you in addition to how we use Jamf a little bit to manage that and to track that. So if you're new to the, oh, and there's a joke here about we don't do Windows, but we're underneath one. Yeah, you weren't the only one. The jokes only get better from here.
We promise.
Wow. All right. At least we're not between you and the beer bash. We got a little bit more than that. All right. So traditional help desk metrics. If you've been at a call center, if you've run internal help desk, you probably know what a lot of these are. You've got, rate of calls. You've got average handle time, average speed of answer, abandon rate. We have, like I said, like Sean Matthew said, about 600 agents. We track all of these things a lot. They're all very, very important metrics, and I don't mean to belittle these, but they don't really encapsulate what an Apple managed service environment should be like, all right? So by all means, you need to capture these, you need to track these, and you need to use these for the health of your desk, but don't rely on them too much. And the thing that I don't like about these at all is almost all of these, the goal in most desks is to get these numbers to zero, right? At first you come out there and say, well, every call costs us money. Either we're charging it back to the customer, we're charging it back to the department, or it's just money out of the pocket of the company. So let's get the calls to zero. All right, our average handle time is too high. If we have a call that takes 15 minutes, the wrap time is 3, the talk time is 12, let's drive that down. Let's find tools that help the wrap time go down. Very important to have, but they don't make for a great user experience. If you're in the keynote this morning, Fletcher Previn from IBM kind of touched upon this a little bit. The advantage of having a great Apple environment and having a real empowered user base is not to drive numbers like this to zero, but to have really excited users that are empowered, that actually want to partner with IT. So again, while we look at these metrics, they tend to maybe provide kind of a false sense of security because you end up looking at costs, all right? And you focus on that. It's very important that you keep track of your costs. It's very important that you know what your costs are. However, if you're only looking at costs as you go forward, you're going to kind of miss the forest for the trees, all right? And so when we looked at these metrics, we saw that they were lacking a lot of parts to them. And they weren't really giving us what we wanted. You may have scorecards like this, and as you can tell, this isn't real data, right? But you stare at these scorecards with CSAT going up and something going down and utilization going this way and QA going that way. And you try to divine, well, do people like us? Do they want to call us? If nobody calls you, maybe you're not doing it all right, right? And how do you track that on some of these scorecards that you may be using already? So the other reason why traditional metrics kind of bite, they really give you the wrong view and the wrong focus on what you're doing. And you get focused on the reduction and they get easily gamed, all right? We know this quite a bit. We're a US-based call center. You might guess that that has some interesting implications for us when we compete with other companies that are out there for some of those IoT accounts that we have. So we know a lot of the games that go on. If you need to reduce your call time, just hang up on the user in the middle of the call. Right? Call time goes down. If you need to reduce your average handle time, put the user on hold before they get off. Now that's talk time, not handle time. Fill out the ticket, finish that, then take them off hold. They've already hung up, whatever, then close out the call. Now you've reduced your wrap time. Everything's great. You can play these numbers a lot of different ways. We don't want to be in that game. Mac users don't want to be in that game. We want to be in a much better place, right? Another example that you typically see, and a lot of times you'll see accounts that look for the knee. If you've done any of these kind of scatter charts, for example, this may be average speed of answer down here. The green dots or the vertical axis is then CSAT. And you find a point where somewhere in there, you have this kind of drop off that the longer you take to answer the call, the more and more annoyed the user is, right? So you'll find a service provider that may come in here and say, well, our CSAT level should be 80%. That's what we're contracted for. There's no point in giving a 95% CSAT level, right? Because we're not getting paid extra necessarily. So let's find that knee where it drops over that line, all right? This is a bad way to run your desk. You're again running it towards zero. You're trying to reduce the contact with your users. You're trying to not have them engage with you, all right? So we've started to put a lot of thought into, these are all great stuff. You want to put it in it, but don't believe all of this, right? Just because you have a low first call resolution, that's good? No, that's bad. But then maybe your users aren't calling you back, so maybe that's why your first call resolution is so high. Because they're so upset about having to call you in the first place that when you don't answer it the first time or you don't answer it right, they never call back to tell you, all right? So especially when we've got tools like Jamf and the self-service, we wanted to find a way that we could put that together and come up with a different metric, one that didn't go to zero, one that went up. So what we like to do a lot in TrueSource is we like to make it better. We like to kind of take a look at what's out there. What can we do that's a better way of looking at this metrics? How can we make a number that goes up instead of go down? How can we show how good we are? Because if you're a managed services provider or if you're internal help desk, you may be doing an amazing job. You may be using great tools, Jamf, other things that are out there. Your call volume is probably going down, right? If you're doing it right, your call volume is going down. Of course, what that means, if you just track calls, if you just track contacts per user, suddenly your cost per contact is going up. Because you still have a fixed cost of keeping the desk open, you have a fixed cost of tools and everything else like that. So how do you track work that you've done that the user didn't even notice? How do you track self-service work? How do you do all of these things? So this is what we wanted to put into a metric that was maybe a little bit more illustrative of the work that you were doing and the value that you're providing into that environment. So first of all, we wanted to look at kind of 4 major pieces. When you run your desk, keep track of the call times, keep track of all those other things. But when you present your value to your account, when you present your value to the business case, the business unit that you're working with, we like to focus on these 4 parts. The first one is definitely customer sat. If customers aren't happy with your service, you've got a problem. all right? Just very, very simple. We like to shoot for upwards of 95% CSAT, all right? We don't like shooting for 80% and just holding it in the middle and maybe that'll be good enough. We want to be that exemplary example. We want to be up there. We want to be at a very high CSAT. Engagement. We wanted a number that wouldn't be better if it was lower, all right? Many, many years ago, people were excited about IT. They wanted to work with IT, and it was exciting to have you call. Over the last couple of years, we've had a lot of a shift left, right? Going from tier 1 to tier 0, from tier 0 to tier -1. And now we have a lot of IT work that's being done without the user even realizing, right? Really good stuff, right? We do a lot of that as well. You know, we fire off emails when you hit 95% of your hard drive space. Because if you talk to us now, it's 3 minutes. If you talk to us in a week, it might be 45 minutes, right? So that's very good things that we're doing, but they're not necessarily calls. They're proactive work. We want to ticket for it. We want to get credit for that. We want to show it. But we also want to find a way where we can do more of this and not have it be seen as a bad thing, to have that contact rate go up. So that's where we focused on engagement. And some of this is going to look a little bit like you would maybe track engagement in a marketing campaign. How many views of a social media post do you have internally? How many users have looked at a K-base article? Those kinds of things are what we're putting into this engagement metric, all right? And we've had a lot of arguments about, is a view of a social media post internally the same value as a view of a video on how to connect to your VPN connection? No. But then we don't know how to put a good weight on that anyway. What we're looking for here is a number that has no ceiling. A way of getting the users even more and more engaged with IT than they are before, and something that we want to see go up. Agent satisfaction. Very, very important to the health of your desk. If your agents are not happy about what they're doing, if they're not happy when they engage with the users, you will have a bad customer sat experience. Pretty simple, pretty easy to understand, right? One of the things that makes an agent's life on the desk shorter is when they're only on the desk and they're only answering phones. All right? If you don't give them other work to do, if you don't give them side projects, if they don't have fun things that they want to focus on, you're not going to have a happy agent. If you don't have a happy agent, you're not going to have happy users. All right? Plus, you're going to be cycling through agents a lot more than you ever were before. Right? And it takes a lot of time and effort to train up an agent and then just keep them for 12 months, 18 months before they move off to a better job, newer job, something else. All right? So we found that agent satisfaction is a huge part of what the health of your desk looks like. Because that means you've got long-term longevity, you've got agents that are bought into your experience, and they're transferring that passion. They're transferring that excitement about solving IT problems, which is sometimes harder to do than others, but they're transferring that onto the users and you have a better experience. And then finally, we wanted a metric around quality of support, all right? Because just because you answered the call quickly, just because the user was happy, doesn't mean it was handled in the best way, all right? And this is something that we found that a lot of internal help desks especially don't have a very good handle on. With our 600 agents, we do a lot of QA work between all of them. So every week we're watching whatever they do through written support, through chat, through email. We're listening to their phone calls. And we actually use this as a way of training new agents on these desks, all right? Because it's not bad to have your work reviewed. It's not a bad thing to have your peer listen in on your call. It's not a bad thing to have somebody take a look at what you did with that interaction with the user and say, hey, you know, you didn't mention this particular piece. Or when you were finished with the conversation, you didn't actually mention that they could have learned this on the intranet and they might not have had to call in the first place. All right, so that's why we look at a strong QA, the quality of support that's in there. And we're going to show you a scorecard here in a little bit that kind of helps you maybe think about that a little bit. All right, one of the things that we focus on a lot. All right, so we think 95% is a good goal. We try very hard not to bombard users with long surveys. I think it's established that the more questions you ask, the more closer to 4.7 on a 5-point scale you get. That they just get tired by the end and just start clicking 3s or 4s. Or you get the outliers on both sides. And the outliers on both sides aren't really a good indication of what your real CSAT is with the users. So what we try to do for a CSAT is we try to ask them one single question: were we good or not? That's effectively NPS. Would you promote us? Would you recommend us to a friend? And then if we weren't good, or even if we were, any comments about it? We try to do it as quickly as possible after the interaction. With bombard, for example, which is one of the big tools we use, we do this as just an after chat survey. All right? One question, we know they fill it out. Our utilization of the reporting has gone up, and I think our accuracy of the reporting has really gone up. All right? And if somebody thinks we didn't do an absolute perfect job, we want them to click no. We want to be able to re-engage with them. We want to look at that interaction, and we want to find out what we could have done better with that. All right? So we found that doing it quicker, doing it more often, gets us a better CSAT. We also don't have to wait a month for the survey emails to go out, for the users to remember to do it, for them to pull it out of their spam box, and then maybe think about putting it together. We want them in the heat of the moment. This is the engagement part. And we've started to look at all the different ways that a user might engage with the desk. How might they consume any sort of information? How might they be able to solve a problem on their own? All right? Jamf figures into this because some of this is going to be in self-service, but obviously the easy ones, knowledge-based views, those are pretty easy to track. You've got a web page that you have them, just look at the counts. Are they going up? Are they going down? Are people engaged? Are they using it? We do a lot of social media metrics. This is where we do a lot of our tier 0 and our tier -1 support. Whatever the internal help desk forums are, right? We look for how many users are subscribed. That's one way that we track this. Is a larger percentage of the user base part of the forum? Well, that's usually a good sign that maybe it's a healthier community. You're probably not shooting for 100%, but you want that metric to be going up, all right? How many posts are in the forum? This is something we had to kind of learn the hard way, that we had very, very excited people on the desk that were very passionate about helping others. And so as soon as something happened on the forums, they jumped in and they wanted to solve the question. It's great. Average speed of answer in a forum post was going down. It was amazing. But then we weren't building that community. We weren't allowing the Mac users to get engaged with themselves. We weren't allowing somebody in engineering to say, hey, I found this really cool trick with this internal app that only 8 of you ever will use, but this has some really cool functionality, and if you do this, your life gets better. All right? That's the kind of interested and active community that we want, and so that's why we track some of these social media, internal forum kind of metrics, to make sure that we still have that engagement and things are going up and to the right with that. We lump these all under anything that can be done one-to-many. All right? So under engagement, we look at what can one person create that many people will consume. What can one resource be that many people will look at? So effectively, it's anything other than chat, phone, and email, where you've got to have dedicated agent time that works with it, if that makes sense. All right? And then we think this will be a very flexible metric because it's going to go in a lot of different directions. We don't know what kind of engagement formats we have a year or 2 years from now. Are we chatting with people on Pinterest about how to fix their Mac? Maybe not. But I think it's an interesting way to look at the community and the health of it and what you can do with it. So we wanted to go up. Gratuitous keynote. All right, keynote's not exciting anymore. That used to be a lot more fun. All right, agent satisfaction. A happy desk is an efficient desk. We look to make sure that every agent has a project. If an agent is just an agent, if all they're there to do is answer the phone or answer the chat or answer the text, they're not going to be a happy agent. All right? We have agents on our desk that are graphic designers, so they do some of our logos for the apps that we write, and they put together some of the documentation. We have other agents that really like writing stuff, and they get into technical English and that, and so they can write some of the documentation, and they've got that side job. We've got others that are much more focused on working in Casper, doing packaging, doing some of the back-end architectural work. And so we can bring these agents up and give them something exciting to do. All right? It's a great thing that we've looked at that helps us do stuff on the desk that we would have never expected. We don't want to have a very rigid mentality that a phone call gets in. If the agent doesn't know how to solve it, their first action is to escalate it to somebody else. That person then takes it. That's a bad experience for the user. We want agents that feel empowered, that are able to go after and hunt down some of these problems, and don't feel that they need to wait for a tier 2 to come in and save them, or for a tier 3 to come in and make that problem. All right? We very much focus on, again, that other work that they can do. We want it to be the point that our phones are ringing so seldomly that they're like, oh, geez, I was in Xcode and I was writing this and it was really cool, but now I got to go answer the phone. All right, we're not there yet. But if we get there, I think I'll be happy, because that means that we've got an excited, active agent group. We rely a lot more on the tier 2 than the tier 1. We found that by not having any tier 1 at all and instead hiring for tier 2 and putting tier 2 out as our front row, that we solve the problems faster. We don't have to worry about the escalation. And at the end of the day, it's a better user experience, it's a better environment, and we hire better people. Right? It is a little bit of a mind flip that you have to think about investing a little bit more long term. All right? But we flatten down that hierarchy on the desk. We don't want somebody that can just answer the phone, not be very good at it, and then just have to do the escalation. We'd rather do that, keep the good people on the desk, but again, keep the call volume and kind of that mundane work as low as possible so that those tier 2 agents are engaged and they do feel good about what they're doing. And then we try to keep it breezy. Right? This shouldn't be drudgery. It shouldn't be, man, I got to go into work and I got to answer a bunch of phones and I got a lot of pissed off users and I don't really want to deal with it. We want this to be a fun and exciting place to be. Unfortunately, an IT help desk is probably not very high on a lot of people's desire for what they want to do in life. All right? Nobody leaves college, oh my God, I'm going to answer phones and help people with password resets. This is amazing. All right? And so the quality of people that you get in, especially if you've dealt in the Apple community quite a bit, usually come from a much varied background. We have musicians on the desk. I got a journalism degree, right? We've got people that came from a graphic design background. We have some people that, a lot of them came through the Apple ranks at Apple Retail. So they've got that great customer service. So we want to keep that excitement that they have. We want to keep that creativity that we have. Because the more creative those agents are, again, the happier they are, the better the user experience, the better the CSAT. So that's agent satisfaction. Next, we want to do quality support, and I'm going to hand it back over to Sean Matthew, who's going to talk a little bit about this and then go into some of the tools that we have.
And so, like Joel was mentioning earlier, it's not a bad thing to check what you're doing. You don't want to just blindly be moving forward and not know what happened. And I think it might be hard to maybe start to convince an agent that this is a good thing for them too, where, hey, we're going to listen to your calls and we're going to read everything that you say and we're going to monitor it all and we're going to check it, and they're freaking out on the inside. But you hired them for a reason and they do amazing work for you. So you want to be able to showcase that too, and you want to focus on the positive but understand that there will be pitfalls, and then work with them. Get an agent that you have who's better at that, partner them together, have them kind of workshop that out and make it better together. But then, like I said, celebrate those successes. Highlight those amazing calls that they had. It's empowering. And so listening to the calls, reading the posts, reading those chats, there's so much value add. And building a standardized metric by which you can monitor all of that is so crucial. And we find that having even one standardized kind of guide across all channels helps too, so that you're not monitoring your chats in a dynamically different way than you are your calls, so that you can understand and kind of compare them, because maybe they don't get a whole lot of one channel versus another, and it's hard to understand what's happening. And then there's great value add in having those agents assess each other, because you learn something so much faster when you teach someone else. And so by interacting with your peers and seeing what they did, they may learn something that that agent did to help the user that they didn't know themselves. And by listening to that call and reading through that, they may learn as well. And so they're empowering each other to provide the best possible service that they can for every single end user. And that's important. And so talking a little bit about kind of tools and ideas, we want to look at kind of what we've been talking about is a new way or a new scorecard. And so one-to-many being on the top. We think it's an area that a lot of people don't focus on because you're so driven for the call rates and the costs associated with all of those, that maybe you kind of ignore forum posts or social media or some of these other one-to-many options. And so having that on your scorecard becomes something that allows you to focus on it. As well as, of course, still your one-to-one interactions, they're going to be crucial, so you still need to be monitoring those. Through your QA, with the form that we're going to talk about, you can have that standardized metric and be able to understand where everything falls. And then you're comparing that up against your CSAT. Because if you only rely on your CSAT, you may not get all the results for every interaction. And like Joel mentioned, depending on how your CSAT is structured, you may not have a super accurate pulse on how those users feel. But if that's your only metric that you have, it may not always be as reliable. And maybe it's not always on you. And so by having your own internal quality checks, you can say, well, these are our policies. This is how we want to provide service. Did we do that? If you rate that and you say, yeah, we did. We feel like we did an amazing job here. But then we look at the CSAT and they think we were horrible. So where's the disconnect? You now have more data and you have a better understanding where you can start to figure out and say, well, why didn't they like us? We thought we did an amazing job. Is our policy terrible? Did we not do something that we aren't even aware that we should be doing? And then you can start to dig in and you can reach back out to that user and you can try and get a little bit more information and gain that understanding. So having all of these metrics together, you get a more broader picture of what's really going on and the health of that desk. And that's so crucial to your continued success and growth.
So we talked about how this was with a little bit of Jamf. And one of the things, I'll bring this up, I don't think it's addressed in Jamf 10, but we have a hard time, since we use mostly cloud-based instances, of actually keeping track of how many people click in self-service. All right. If you have an on-prem system, you can crack open that database and you can start digging into it. But if you're cloud-based, that's a little bit harder for you. So what we've started doing is, how can we ticket, how can we track for when a user clicks something? It's not as easy as we'd like, but what we're starting to do, and we've got some links here at the end. We haven't gotten all the code finished, but we wanted to give you guys some tools that you could be able to do some work and track your own metrics with you. So this is one of them. So we deploy some Python from the Jamf server. It goes on the local machines. It does a query back through the JSS API. A shameless plug for my session tomorrow about the JSS APIs. All right. That's why it's in there. Looks at all the policies that are available in self-service, and then we actually do some log scraping locally, all right, to find out that and to find out how many times a button was clicked. I can't call the JSS anymore, JSP, Jamf Pro, Jamf Server. The Jamf Server in the cloud, it's not a good place to put this information back to. You can stash it as an extension attribute, but then it gets a little bit harder to work with. It's not really what Jamf was designed for. So we've actually been doing a lot of work with the Amazon API gateway. It's also something very cool to use with the new webhooks out of the Jamf server as well, because you can use the API gateway to do some variable conversion on it. From the API gateway, we use Amazon Lambda. If you're in Amazon Web Services, you have about 55,000 different little tools that are available to you. Lambda is one of them and allows you to run scripts without actually having to start up a whole EC2 instance or something else like that. So we send the log into the API gateway, we then run it through Lambda, and we store it in one of the Amazon databases, and you can take your pick for how elastic and scalable you want to do it. And this is how we're actually able to capture the self-service clicks that are in there. And once we have this, we can now do a lot of data mining. So one, we can find out what's the more popular self-service tools that are available. We also like to see if somebody's spam clicking self-service. If they're doing the same policy 3 times in a row, maybe that policy didn't work. We got to go back and we got to look at that. So that's some of the metrics and the heuristics that we can get out of this. And once you get this set up, there's a lot of other reporting that you can do through this kind of facility like we talked about, through the API gateways and the other things. So we'll release all of this in the next couple of days, couple of weeks as we get it finished up. But I think this is a pretty powerful way of actually tracking that, because the engagement through self-service is a very big part of that one-to-many metric that you should be having and you should be expanding to your users. And just because this is and then you make a lot of money, right, or you got very happy users, we were kind of running out of graphics towards the end. There. And because this is a technical conference, we put in a line or two of Python to show you how we look for policies being executed in a log. And we'll, again, like I said, release all of this so you have an example to look at. Now back to a QA scorecard.
So as well as the code, we'll be able to give you guys a copy of this QA scorecard, and you'll be able to kind of reference, customize, make it your own. And through this evaluation card, we're kind of looking at a couple things. So naturally, we're looking at the analysis of your agent performance, and we're rating it on an importance scale. And so certain things are going to be kind of business critical, and then other things aren't. Not everything is a fire. And so you have to kind of assess your lines of business and figure out what is the most important things for your success. And then you want to assign and assess that accordingly. And then based on that, you take actions on the ratings. And this means both consumer and business needs. Some things might be more important to you as a business than the actual end user who's getting the support. Other things are going to be more important and critical for that end user, et cetera. And this will both address policy and procedure-based things as well as behavioral interaction, language, grammar, tone, all of that. So I know that you won't be able to read all of this, and that's why we're going to get you a copy of it. But you can see that it has the criteria on the left and on the right. It's a drop-down clickable menu, and based on each attribute, you can then rate essentially pass, fail, coach. So passing grade, did great. We wanted them to do A, they did A, awesome. Fail, didn't do it, fail. Coach is that gray area in the middle because there's always going to be gray area. So did they accomplish it? Yes. Could they have done it better? All right, well, we need to talk to them about it. Because if we ignore those coaching areas and we say, well, you know, it was fine, they did what they were supposed to do, then improvement is really slow. And so we want to have that, and that's what this big text box on the bottom is for. So when you do coach, or if you're just so excited about the pass, you can leave comments and attach that to your assessment. That way the agent has kind of an active, ongoing, live feedback for how they're doing. And it continues that conversation so that you can continue to improve. And so it goes through customer critical, business critical, and then at the bottom here we have a CSAT predicted score. So we talked earlier about how it's important to do your own internal assessments so that you can also compare them against your external user pulse. So in that, you also want kind of a metric where you can pound for pound match that. So you want your person who's doing this assessment to kind of take a stab at it. Based on what you see, based on how you understand your customers, if you were the customer, how would you rate this interaction? And you're rating it on the same scale with the same question that you design in your CSAT. And again, that gives you a direct comparison where you can say, we rated that a 4 out of 5. Customer rated it a 2. What happened? And then you can start to dig into it. And we think that that's important. And so beyond that, some of the other kind of project time and things that Joel mentioned, content development and other stuff is so crucial, and it feeds in to that QA assessment. So if you're doing all these QAs and you're understanding, man, everybody sucks at this thing. They're so bad at it. So we need to now build some training. We need to build some more knowledge-based articles for our own staff so that they can understand how to do this process or this policy or whatever it is. Maybe we need to build a tool because none of our end users can do this thing and they're always rating us poorly on it, or we have difficulty walking them through it. Maybe there's a better way to do it. And so by giving them that project time where they can start to own that experience and dig through it and make it better, everything is going to become easier. And so all of these become a crucial feedback loop. And so through that assessment and through that data, you can start to find trends and other things that you need to do, and then give those agents that project time. And that's going to help them be happier, and then as a result, help those end users be happier. And so this big jumble of a URL is where you guys can sign up to get access to that script that Joel mentioned. This is also where you'll be able to get a copy of that scorecard that you guys can customize. We have business cards that also have that URL, so you can come grab one of those from us at the end. They're also at our table on the 4th floor. So if you don't want to take a picture or write it down, you can come see us, say hi, and grab a card as well. And so at that, another shameless plug for Joel. And we'll take questions.
Good, we already have one. That's exciting.
You have one, yes. I'm going to go with the one that went on Twitter first, just as a reminder, hashtag JNUC 2016 TSL. The first question, I'll step over here and give you guys some space. First question, do you hire for intuition, and can you share some markers that help you hone in on great candidates?
Sure. Yes, we do. And we're shameless about this, but we're in Austin. We like to hire a lot of people coming from AppleCare. We think we pay a little bit better, so they come to us. We hire from Apple Retail because we don't have a crazy holiday schedule like some of the Apple Retail folks do. And we know that we're already getting that amazing customer service and customer support. Because frankly, a lot of the tech you can teach. It's good if they have it to begin with, but it's that customer presence, it's that way of dealing with the accounts that really becomes an amazing way. So yeah, we are very focused on intuition. When we sit down and we interview agents, we want it to be a friendly conversation. We don't want it to be robotic. We don't want them to get us off the phone as quickly as possible. We want to feel good, we want to feel personal, we want to feel engaged with them, because that's the service that we want to provide.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have much more to add to that, but I think it's those kind of human interaction and interpersonal savvy that a lot of people will innately have that are drawn to Apple as a culture and as a company is why we kind of seek a lot of that. Because those are things that you can't really actively teach someone, how to just be good at interacting with people and have real, valuable, true empathy. And so really understanding and putting yourself in their shoes is so important in all levels of support.
Can you list 2 or 3 KB articles that help you reduce call volume the most?
The ones that reduce call volume the most, some of that will depend on the customer. Obviously, passwords are always a big one. VPN and wireless, those are the big 3. And a lot of that is because there's so many intertwined pieces. We see this a lot on our B2C work that we do, where we're dealing with end users. You know, you may have a home wireless mesh product that we support, and you don't think it works, but it's really your internet provider, or it's really the cabling that got put in that's bad, or it's the concrete and rebar in your walls. And so you got to chase that all the way down. We've actually been doing a lot of work lately on adaptive and guided path K-base setups. And there's a couple of different providers out there, but how you can easily guide a user, an end user, or a business user through a rather complicated triage and decision tree without just making them feel like they're stupid. We've also been putting a lot of thought into how can we write a tool that lives on the end user system. I know a few of you have these, you know, there's a couple of them out there, but we're looking at how can we get information that the user doesn't even know. All right, when you call us up with a problem about your Mac, I want to be able to see in my bombard session exactly everything that's in it. Is your hard drive full? Are you connected to the internet? Does the VPN not work? All of this that the agent can get, so that way we don't have to do that. We want to take that and put that into the K-base article as well. So we're looking for K-base articles that do API calls. And now when they look something up, it'll actually show them what their own system is seeing, and then we can interact with them that way. So we're looking at K-base articles that can get a little more interactive. But to answer the question, I mean, it's the normal stuff that you would expect. It's, you know, making password changes easier. We work with a lot of customers, for example, can we get rid of the 90-day cycle? Can we just make them a 12-character password in the first place and leave them there for 2 years, all right? Can we do these kinds of things that just make it so much simpler for the users? We try to reduce all the binding to AD, all right? That's why Nomad is around and why we've been putting so much work into that. Well, thank you very much. I had to find a way to put a plug in for that as well. So how can we reduce the complexity in the environment so they don't even need to have those questions in the first place?
Who are some customers that were challenging to your own organizations to make you rethink your own processes?
Oh, this is like an Oprah Winfrey question or something, right? Who are customers that challenged? So we get a lot on the B2C side that we do. We get a lot of accounts right out of Kickstarter, and they come in with very little. They get $1 million that they've raised, and they found a factory in China to make their product, but they don't know anything more than that. And so that's both an opportunity and a challenge, because that's where we've gone in, and we've used this on the Mac side as well, and we will actually run beta programs for them. So they've got a list of friends and family that they know will be very honest about the product that they can ship to. So we interact with them, we work with them, we make sure they're happy with the product. That's been kind of one of the biggest mind flips that we had to do there, as to how to get ahead of that. How to take a product that may be very, very weak, or maybe very, very immature, and then build it up to something more exciting and more mature. And on the Mac side, we use that, for example, everyone went through Sierra testing, right? So we do a lot of forward thinking about that. How can we create beta programs within the individual accounts and make sure that everything's good for Sierra, for the latest version of the OS, and go forward. That's been some of the biggest challenges, because that's where you have things that are outside of your control. You have apps that maybe not work, that you don't write, so what do you do? Things like that.
How much team building do you do that doesn't relate to work, such as exploring hobbies or maybe LAN parties or laser tag?
Not enough. That's a thing we need to do a lot more of, because it is very, very important to the health of your desk. We have a night shift. I don't know that the night shift really knows the day shift that well. That's a problem, all right? We're 24/7, so it's a problem to get everybody together at the same time, because we don't really have much downtime. So that's been a bit of a challenge. We did bring in a lot of food for a while, and we'd bond over barbecue, as you do in Austin. But then that kind of infringes on the health plan. And you shouldn't just focus on food as comfort and interaction. So, but no, we need to do more of that, and I hope to do more of that in the future, because for example, we have a lot of rock climbing now in Austin. And if you trust somebody enough to belay you, maybe you'll like to work with them. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think one of the other events that we've done a couple times, we did recently with some of the smaller teams, was kind of solve the room, panic room, puzzle house style things. And so getting a team of 8 or 10 people into a locked room, and they have to puzzle their way out. So for tech support people, for help desk people, it's like, hey, this entire space is a problem that I need to solve right now, but I can't do it on my own. So I have to work with these people here. And that has been so rewarding and so enlightening for a lot of our teams. So that's been a really valuable kind of addition that we've done a lot recently.
It is not very different from the office. And in fact, we have some conference rooms that have handles that break off on the inside. So
it's effectively the same.
I think this will be the last one, and then I know these guys will be around both here and downstairs. Do you also provide chat support or just phone?
We do all mediums. So we do chat, we do phone, we do email. We don't like email very much because it's hard to ticket. You can ingest email into ticketing systems, but then it's a little more impersonal. We like chat more than phone because it's, when we do a new user setup on a Mac, for example, sometimes there's just wait time. And it's always awkward to be on the phone. Has your email come through yet? All right, are you still waiting? All right. Is the beach ball? All right, cool. All right, just let me know. I'll be here. So that's kind of awkward. A lot of people think, though, that chat, you can do multiple chats at the same time, right? And one agent can handle 15 chats. That's completely wrong, all right? But you can, with chat, get rid of some of the dead time, because it doesn't seem as awkward that you're just sitting there on dead air on the phone as they're waiting. So we do phone, we do chat, we do email. Our preference is chat, because we think it's easier, and it's what a lot of the Mac users want. But then you always have to have phone, because you're going to have users that's how they work.
Okay, give it up for these guys one more time.
Thank you.